your company. Laha, Lana, Anya, accepting them. Kara, you do. Sankirtan, chanting the whole name of the Lord. So the translation, you are a sannyasi. Why then do you indulge in chanting and dancing, engaging in your Sankirtan movement in the company of fanatics? That's Prakashananda Sarvati saying that to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport, this is a challenge by Prakashananda Sarvati to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhasya that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the object of Vedanta philosophical research, has very kindly determined who is an appropriate candidate for study of Vedanta philosophy. The first qualification of such candidate is expressed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshashtaka. Trinarapisu nichena tararapisu hishnuna amanana amaladina kirtaniya sadahari. This statement indicates that one can hear or speak about Vedanta philosophy through this disciplic succession. One must be very humble and meek, more tolerant than a tree and more humble than a blade of grass. One should not claim respect for himself, but should be prepared to give all respect to others. One must have these qualifications to be eligible to understand Vedic knowledge. What is that verse in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, no, Vedaschara, Ahamiva Vedya. Yeah, Vedaschara, Ahamiva Vedya. Krishna says that of all the Vedas I am to be known. But so many people read the Vedas and they do not come to the conclusion that they know Krishna. Quite the contrary, actually. So this indicates that there is a principle to understand, and this is what Srila Prabhupada writes here when he says that, quoting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in his Anubhasya, he says that the object of Vedanta philosophical research is, what does he say? Who is the object of Vedanta? Has very kindly determined who is an appropriate candidate for study Vedanta philosophy. So we have to see that if we are an appropriate candidate to learn or to do anything, so what does that take to be an appropriate candidate? And first qualification, one has to be authorized. Whatever you do in life, you have to be authorized. There's a difference between authorized and allowed. Like even if you look at the etymology of the word authorized, there's octa. Octa is like the Latin in French. Author, which is in English, author, which is the original. And then there's the other one, which is allowed. And allowed is when you allowed. There's even a definition. There's many definitions of allowed, but one of the definitions is yeah, it's condoned. They'll let you do it, but it's almost, yeah, if you really want to do it, you can do it. So all the activities that we perform, they're either one of those three. Either it's authorized, it's allowed, or it's not authorized. And most of the time, it's not authorized. So oftentimes people think, yeah, I just do whatever I want to do. And even in the in the field of this amazing philosophical New Age, they say you got to empower yourself. You got to follow your heart and do your thing. But it seems that actually when you do your thing, it doesn't really work properly, because the outcome is not the outcome for your own welfare. You'll get an outcome, but it's not necessarily good. That's because one is not authorized. So any activity has to be authorized before we do it. Otherwise there's no recognition, there is no validation. And of course the desired outcome is not for one's own good. So Krishna mentions that in the Bhagavad Gita as well. He says, what does he say about that? In the Bhagavad Gita? Better to perform
your duty even imperfectly.
Your duty imperfectly than someone else's perfectly. So what does that mean really? It means that a person, if you're authorized to do something, then you're given all the goods. And Krishna says something else in the Bhagavad Gita about that. He says whatever you lack, whatever you have, I will preserve that. And he says whatever you lack, I will bring to the party. So when you're authorized to do something, then Krishna gives you everything that you need to do it with it. So it's great, because you get all the goods, you get all the tools, you get the intelligence, you get the resources. But if you're not authorized to do it, then karma will give you whatever your previous life had dictated according to your action, and then you deal with that. And maybe you're successful, maybe you're not, but the real success is not that actually. And that goes in all activities, whether material or spiritual. So, for a good example is Ekalavya. Ekalavya is a contemporary of the Pandavas, and he basically grew up with them, but he wasn't qualified. Specifically, he wasn't authorized because he went to the guru of arms, Dronacharya. Was it Dronacharya? Yeah. And he asked him, can I learn the science of weaponry like the Pandavas? And Dronacharya said, no, you cannot. So he made a little effigy, little doll. Wasn't quite a voodoo doll, but something. And he worshipped Dronacharya. He started his own worship. And then by doing that, then he was training. So he was training in the archery. And he got really good. He got so good that when the Pandavas were walking in the forest, they heard this dog barking, and then suddenly the dog was muzzled, and they went to have a look what was the problem. And the dog was totally muzzled with arrows. It's quite amazing to actually build it, and you have to know the mantras and everything else. And then they said, who did that? So they brought the dog to Dronacharya, they found out who did it, and then they said, oh, this is Kala, somehow they found out, whatever, Kalavya was there. They found out that it was him. So then Dronacharya said, bring him here. So he said, yeah, well, how did you learn all that? He said, I learned from you, because I built this little thing, little altar, and I worship you every day. I chant the mantras, and I go to the, and he was an excellent archer. As a matter of fact, he could be a little better than Arjuna, actually. So then Dronacharya said, okay, now me being the teacher, you have to give me some exchange, to give some dakshin, like some reward. And Ekalavya said, yeah, sure, what would you like? He said, well, I'll have your right thumb. So Ekalavya had to get the knife out and cut his right thumb out. And of course, after that, it wasn't really functional, so he was not the best archer either. So you don't want to be Ekalavya's, where you actually perform a duty that you self-assign. You just do your own thing, basically. But because it's not authorized, then the outcome is not right. So in the Vedas, same thing. In the Vedas, you can read the Vedas, you can learn Sanskrit. Like many scholars nowadays, modern scholars, they learn Sanskrit, they learn everything. But because it's not authorized, then you don't get the proper way. So that's one particular qualification that is required here. The second qualification is which is in line with this first one, is that one must be very humble. So of course, Prabhupada quote Trinadapi Sunichinata Ravati Soishnina Marina Marina Caitanya Sadahari. He says this statement indicates that one can hear or speak about Vedanta philosophy through the disciplic succession. One must be very humble and meek and tolerant, like the tree more humble than the grass. So what does that mean? That means that when we get all, because there's a nice analogy in the Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, where Sukadeva Goswami describes the illusion of the conditioned soul. So this is how he thinks. Like he says, during the autumn season, during the rainy season, there are big clouds that cover the moon. But the moon, the full moon is shining, so the clouds appear very bright. So the fool would think, well, the clouds are lighting up the whole planet. So he says, similarly, the conditioned soul has a false ego, and the false ego is lit up by the soul. And in the false ego, one can feel very competent and very, very good in the material world, doing things, looks very nice. But actually, it's just a dull or dimmed reflection, or let's say it's filtered by the false ego. So the soul is very powerful, and the soul gives all the illuminations very bright, but it goes through the false ego, and then the false ego gives just a dim, not even reflection, just a dim appearance of the real light. And a person functioning within that will think, this is great, I'm doing things in the material world, I'm achieving things. But not knowing that actually it is the soul that is hampered, diminished. The brightness of the soul is diminished through the false ego. So he says, so Sukadeva Goswami uses that example to say that one cannot actually see the full moon when you have all the clouds. The clouds have to dissipate. But to do this, one has to obviously adopt a process, but that process has to be authorized. And one has to be authorized, and one has to have the qualification. And the qualification is that I cannot see the moon with all those clouds. So I need to be actually very, as described here, through the disciplic succession, and one must accept the process and accept a way of doing it. So therefore, it's a bit like, I gave the example the other day that when you want to go from Brisbane to Perth, you get on the authorized ways to get on the highway, right? You get on the M1, and you accept all the rules, the speed limit. You accept everything that's there. You got to stop at the sign, you got to stop at the lights, you got to do all this. You accept all that. You're on the M1, but because you're authorized, you're sure you're going to get to Perth. But then if you choose the other option, which means you do what you like, then you just get in your car and you drive through the desert. And you drive through the cactuses and meet up with the wallabies that land on your bonnet, and you run out of fuel because there's no petrol station in the desert. But it's okay because I do what I like, right? I'm free, I'm a free spirit. You have to feel your heart and just do how you feel. So you just hit the desert and go. And what is the result? And the result you might get, well, most likely you end up, I don't know, with a lizard somewhere. But it won't be in Perth. You'll be very, very, very lucky to end up there. So, but if you get on the highway, of course you can say, well, there's so many rules. I got to drive at 100 kilometers an hour, I got to stop there, all that kind of stuff. But accepting those rules and regulations under authority gets you to the place. But our tendency is to do whatever we assign ourselves different duties, different services, different occupations. We just assign it to ourselves. And mostly, they're assigned out of need. Oh yeah, I need to make some money, or I need to get married, or I need to get some education. And then we self-assign. But there's no authorization. It's just me, myself, and I. The whole three of us. The Three Stooges. But then we don't get validation, we don't get verification, and we don't get the end result. So it takes great humility to put aside our emotions and our ways of thinking of how I should do it, to listen to the disciplic succession, because the disciplic succession always gives us. So therefore there are also different levels of authority. Like people nowadays, how do you get knowledge? How do you find out about, let's say, Bill Gates? Then you just get on YouTube and you find out. That's how you just open your computer and there it is. All the knowledge that you want, it's right there. But do you actually understand what's going on? I won't get into the politics, I think, but although I really want to, but I think I control myself. Because there's a way to understand something, and most of the population like nowadays, just to give it a don't recall that. There are a lot of people that misunderstand stuff so badly because they're not allowed and they're not authorized. They're not scientists, they're not doctors, they're not, sometimes when you go out to someone you say, oh, I've got this, I've got a sore back, I've got this or that. Well, you know what? You should take this and that. If you take this and you turmeric and you tie up to your left hand and ginger and this and that, it'll fix it. It seems like everyone is a doctor. You tried. I got this. You should do that. What's your qualification for being a doctor? Qualification? Whatever. I'll just say it. Whatever comes to my mind, I just say it. Same for everything. So there's no qualification, no authorization. So then just opening a computer or listening to YouTube makes one an authority immediately. I become the authority. But who authorized you to do this? Who authorized you even to acquire this knowledge? Sometimes you do things and you think you're better at others, but the reality is that because there's no one that authorized you to do that, you may get some dim reflection, like the moonshine coming through the clouds. You get some dim reflection, but it's not the real thing. And the real thing only comes through disciplic succession. And here we're not just talking about spirituality, we're talking about any knowledge. It has to be not only authorized, but you have to have the proper mood. So that's an important point if we want to get the real result. And the real result, of course, in this case of spiritual science, is to understand who is behind the Vedas. Of course, it's Krishna. But this is not obvious to everyone. There's so many translations. There's translation of Bhagavad Gita that they say Krishna is just part of the whole absolute thing. There's so many ways to understand things. So most people don't come to the conclusion that Krishna is the ultimate. So this is why in the Vedas say, in the karma kanda in the Vedas is so big, because that's what Krishna allows people to do, not authorizes. Like for example, we have a material body, but Krishna never authorized us to have a material body. He allowed us to have a material body. He said, if you really want one, okay, then I'll give you one. It's a sanction. It's a sanction. So, okay, you want a material body, you can have it. But he never authorized it. If you're authorized with Krishna, you're in the spiritual world with Krishna, you can do anything you like. Because you have the authorization. You can lift mountains, you can even ride on Krishna's back and have races. But he's God. But no, you can, because you're in an atmosphere where it's authorized. So therefore you can do just about everything you want. Because it's authorized. But when you're not authorized, then you're allowed. You want a natural body, so you have a natural body. But then You can say, well, I'm doing really well, you know. I've got this body and I've got this great family and I've got lots of money and I've got education and I've got beauty. I even got renunciation. And what's the end result? You die. Sorry. That's the punchline. So you didn't get it? So you're not authorized. So you have a body and you can do wonderful things. But because you're not authorized, then the end result is that you die. And oftentimes you take birth again. But if you're authorized, that means you're with Krishna in a spiritual body, and then you can do anything you like. You can eat ladus the whole day long and you never get indigestion. You try that now. You can play with Krishna all day long, you never get tired. You can do the same pastime, take the cows out every day and come back, and Krishna will swallow the forest fire, and you think it's all perfectly alright. What's wrong with that? And it's fun every day. And you can go to the Jamuna river and you can drink the water, and you get poisoned because Kaliya is sitting in the water. And he says, it's okay because Krishna will revive me, and Krishna revives you. Because it's all authorized. It's all within the environment where Krishna authorizes you. You can do anything you like. So then that becomes spiritual. And when you're not authorized, when you're allowed, then it becomes magical. Then you're in the magical world. Because you do whatever you want to do, not what Krishna wants to do. So the process of Krishna consciousness is the way to gradually shift the allowed status to the authorized status following the disciplication. But of course, to do that, it takes a lot of humility. And that humility is actually to try to understand that there is more than just the clouds that are lighting up the whole place. And the place looks great, yeah, it's cloudy, and the clouds are so shiny, it looks great. But actually behind is the moon. So to understand that, it takes great humility and practice. Oh, okay. Small level.
How do you know if you're just doing things? How can you catch yourself if you're just doing what you're allowed to do compared to being authorized and practical activity?
Well, as the scriptures say, you always have to have an authority. And Prabhupada even coins the phrase, the dog without its master. I'm sure you all know why the dog is the only animal that's doomed. It's because it cannot feed itself. Every other animal on the planet can feed themselves, but the dog cannot. The dog needs the human being. Therefore Prabhupada says, dog without a master, it's not working. So how do you know? Is when you have to have an authority. But people pride themselves on the opposite. I don't have to have an authority. I am a free man. I am the entrepreneur. So how do you know? It's basically by checking whether you have an authority and whether you're actually in contact with that authority to check what you're doing is authorized. Otherwise we can perform very well, but the end result is like some people, they say, I've made lots of money in my life, it's quite successful. But the end result is that you become attached to it. But if your authority tells you make lots of money, then the end result is that you won't be attached to it. So how do you check? You don't want to wait for the end. You check whether you have an authority, whether you're doing things on your own, or whether you're following an authority. But we don't really like to hear that. It's not very pleasant to have an authority. Sounds like someone's riding you there, taking your freedom away. Krishna Chaitanya.
Just a quick comment. There's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita that summarizes pretty much what we've been saying in the 16th chapter. Krishna's the translation says, one acts according to his own whims, disregards spiritual injunctions.
Right.
Krishna says you will not attain perfection,
Right.
you will not attain nasukam, nor happiness, napankati, nor the supreme destination. So that's pretty much Krishna himself directly says.
Yeah. Even in material existence, it just doesn't work in there.
Is there such a thing as not allowed?
That's when you go to jail.
Spiritually speaking.
Spiritually speaking?
Yeah.
So it's not allowed to do someone else's service or duty. That's really not allowed. It's not allowed to, when the spiritual master asks you for water and you bring milk, it's not really. And of course it's not allowed. You know, there are the things that will be detrimental to your own progress. But mostly here we're not talking about rules and regulations, we're talking about acceptance of authority, which is what Prabhupada says here. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj quotes here in his Anubhasya. In order to accept authority, you have to be humble and tolerant, and more tolerant than blade of grass. So of course there's many things that are not allowed, but you can do whatever is within your capacity, even if it's sinful. Like, I'm sure Krishna doesn't allow animal sacrifice, but they do it everywhere. But then there is a consequence to that. So, are you talking more in relation to when you're in devotional service, or when you're just
regarding that kind of what you mentioned, authorized, not authorized, allowed. I mean, logically there should be a not allowed, and I was trying to find a place for this.
Wait, but for who you mean? For people in general, or for devotees?
No, I mean, I understand that there is a law, like state law, that they are allowed to do this and that, but more like in a philosophical way. Because I was thinking that Krishna gives us freedom, so we kind of allowed to do anything, but we're not authorized.
Yeah.
So.
But if you want to be authorized to do something, you check who the authority is, whether that's pleasing to the authority, and then within that, you will get allowed and not allowed. Basically, when you say authorized, you can do anything you want. Because if you do it for the purpose of fulfilling the order or the direction of the authority, so then everything becomes justified. If your intention and purpose is to fulfill, and one classic example of that is Yudhishthira Maharaj, who was told by Krishna, you lie. You tell them that Ashwatthama is dead. So you're not allowed to lie according to, normal things. But Krishna told him you lie. So that's not allowed, but because he's under the authority of Krishna, he was allowed to do it. I don't think you're allowed to put the dust of your feet on Krishna's head. But the gopis are authorized, they're allowed. It's not that they want to do it, it's not that they want to break the rule, but they use any circumstance to satisfy the authority for whom they are dedicating for whom you're dedicating your life to. So it creates this authorization allows you more freedom than an allowance. The allowance, you end up dying anyway, or whatever. But the authorization, so within the authorization, you're allowed to do anything. Like I said before, you're authorized to be with Krishna. You can eat as much laddu as you want the whole day. But here you cannot. So yeah, if you're not authorized, there's many things that you're not allowed to do because they're detrimental to you. Basically, it's a shift of consciousness. That's why the Hare Krishna movement is called a positive alternative, I guess. As we change. I'm going to ask you a question. You know, oftentimes we do something because of our emotions, because of our needs. And that's the danger. You've got to check authority before that. That's Aryan, that's the higher class of human beings.
Hare Krishna. As I understand, when we follow the authority of Krishna, I mean, we are on the right path and we can do almost everything. But on the practicality of daily life, we need to follow authority of people that are fallible, that are like Krishna. They make mistakes. And we have seen even in ISKCON, you know, in the early days there have been some devotees follow authorities and they did really big wrong things. So where is the line? How do we discern if the authority is authoritative or if the authority is not authoritative?
Well, Prabhupada answers that question. He says it's in the disciplic succession. So if your authority is in the disciplic succession, it's a good authority, and if it's not, then it's not.
Yeah, but we've seen people following, you know, devotees, gurus in disciplic succession, and I mean nowadays we can say that
Well,
the right thing to do
if you behave,
in disciplic succession.
you're in disciplic succession, you're in disciplic. But if you don't behave in disciplic succession, you know.
Okay, so that requires a lot of knowledge and intelligence to understand if the person is behaving.
Not a lot, but Krishna describes it very clearly in the Bhagavad Gita how a person in the disciplic succession should behave. And everyone here is in the disciplic succession if they follow. And it's not very complicated either. So then you're in the disciplic succession and therefore Krishna empowers you to give the right directions. And if you're not in the disciplic succession, that means you behave strangely, then you're out. So you cannot, that's how you know the difference of the question.
Okay, and now a neophyte that doesn't know the Bhagavad Gita, doesn't know, you know, how a person in succession should behave, how a neophyte can recognize an authority and, you know, take guidance from an authority.
By acquiring knowledge. And that's why there is a period before initiation, which requires from the neophyte to acquire knowledge to understand how a person should behave. And it's not very complicated. It's quite simple. This is how a person in the disciplic succession should behave. I will listen to this person. And this person obviously does not behave like that. I will not listen to this person. Or I will listen to some extent with a certain amount of discrimination. So the person requires that 1 year or 2 years that Prabhupada has spoken about to acquire knowledge. So the answer cannot be there from the neophyte immediately, who's an authority, who's not. But the authority, the ultimate authority says, acquire knowledge to know that. It normally takes about a month to do that. You can see what you want.
Just another example, example that Prabhupada would often give in this relation is the authorised killing for soldiers authorised to go to battle. If you kill 100 people, you come back, they give you a medal, make a monument to glorify it.
Yeah.
If you kill one person without authority, if you're a murderer, then you put in jail.
I remember when I broke my foot one of the times, you know, like another operation in the hospital. And they took me into the emergency, and then I have these guys coming down dressed in green, right? They came down from upstairs. They're the ones that catch you up. And they had this kind of look on their face, like I figured out, I thought that these guys are authorized butchers because they actually love the blood and gore. They like it. but because I remember thinking that clearly before the Nobya, and I thought the way that they dealt with you, they was very kind. You know, you okay? You got this, that. They're very kind with you, but they got a scalpel in their hand. You know, if you see anyone with a knife in your hand, you go, oh my God, what's his intentions? You know, because he's obviously not authorized. You meet some guy in the street with a knife in your hand, you know, he's obviously not authorized to be like that, especially when you got to stick in your guts. But then I felt those people that came from upstairs in the hospital, they were there with their knives in their hand and their mask and everything, and they were smiling at you and everything. And I really felt that they were authorized, you know, there were people, they were authorized to cut you open because they obviously like the blood. Otherwise you wouldn't be a surgeon, right? But you like cutting things up like a butcher. You know, you look into, imagine doing that, right? So pull the liver out and stuff like that. It's horrible. But they like doing it, and because they like doing it, they went through the proper process and they were authorized to do it in the proper way. So therefore the outcome is good. And you feel like you can trust it. Unlike if you meet someone in the street with a knife, you think they'll pass on the operation. Not right now. You might need a bit more anesthetic. And that's true, that someone can go to war and kill someone and use a knife, but do it properly, you know. So yeah. Thank you very much.